Hey, it's me, Vicky Marie. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in this crazy world. Well, one thing I didn't expect to be doing today would be to come onto a live and be talking about Anne Widdicombe being murdered. So this morning, in the live stream that I did this morning, I did a little tribute to Anne. I was saying, as far as politics is concerned, Anne and I couldn't be further removed, really, But that doesn't mean to say you can't sort of respect somebody's views. Politically, lots of us have got different political views. Years ago, that didn't mean that we would argue about it. Debate is important. That's the whole basis of our modern society, should be. Feels like we can't debate anything these days because people get too angry, don't they? But anyway, so yeah, politically I didn't agree with Anne Widdecombe, but I was quite, the sort of, what can I say, the fond memories, if you like, that I would have of Anne Widdecombe is of her on Strictly Come Dancing when she was dancing with Anton Dubek, and get she really, thing is, she could laugh at herself, and she gave a lot of entertainment. I'm sure she got into the semi-finals or something. People just kept voting for her because she was entertaining, not because she was a good dancer. She was a terrible dancer, and Anton Dubek had to practically pull her around the stage, didn't he? But it was entertaining. The other thing that I'll always respect Anne for is the way that she stood up to Mick Philpott, the horrible Mick Philpott, who basically murdered most of his children, didn't he, in a house fire. And before that, she'd been to do a documentary with him about benefits cheats, sort of thing, or people who, because he never worked a day in his life, did he? He was on benefits. He just kept having more children, and he was a terrible misogynist. And she stood up to him. She stood up to him, and he didn't like that at all. So I'll always have respect for her for that. And as I say, politically, no. Also, she's an animal lover. She was against fox hunting. So, that wouldn't have been popular when she was in the Conservative Party. And then, I'm surprised. It's the same with Nigel Farage. He's for, Nigel Farage, who says he's anti-establishment. You couldn't get more establishment than Nigel Farage. But she was anti-fox hunting, and she spoke up for it. And the one thing I think you can say about Anne, whatever, is what she said. She truly believed in. She didn't say things. She wasn't in a popularity contest. She wasn't saying things to get elected or to have this happen or to have that happen. She would say what she genuinely thought. She was what they call a conviction politician, and they are so few and far between, aren't they, these days? Anyway, so yeah, we were talking about Anne this morning. I mean, she was 78 years old. Thing is, when they announced that she'd deceased, and if it's 78, I mean, I know it's young by today's standards, but I don't think anybody would have questioned, that it would have been any kind of death but a natural one, because of her age or some illness. Then, of course, this bombshell that the police had opened a murder investigation. And the bit of good news that we do have is that somebody has been arrested. A 26-year-old man, 26. I suppose as my son gets older, I'm always shocked by the ages of people who do these terrible things. 26. But he's a man. He's a man. And now what we don't know yet, we're going to have a look at the police conference in a moment. I had to go and take my son to work, so I couldn't watch it live. I've watched a little bit of it when I've been preparing for this live stream, but basically we will be watching it together. But one thing we do know is that this 26-year-old white male, because they're at pains nowadays to give someone's ethnicity and nationality is a British white male, according to the police. No evidence there is a politically motivated murder, but then they didn't say there it wasn't either. You know, they're not releasing that information. It's quite ironic actually, because I did catch the end of the police press conference where, you know, as always they say, oh, no speculation, don't speculate, especially social media. And then I've just watched Sky News for 15 minutes when all they're doing is speculating. They always blame it on social media, bloody cheap. You know, everybody's going to speculate until the news comes out of what's actually happened, because that is human nature. And mainstream media does it just as much, if not more, than social media. They always blame social media for it. Anyway, so what we know is that Anne Widdicombe, a 78-year-old woman, has been murdered in her own home. That's really what we've got to be focusing on here. An elderly, you know, forget taking the politics out of it. An elderly woman in her own home, murdered. We don't know the exact circumstances of how she was killed, but her injuries are supposed to be horrific. So, yeah, what has happened there? Is this a burglary gone wrong? It's got shades of Nancy Guthrie, hasn't it? The Nancy Guthrie case over in America, though, of course, Nancy was taken away from what we know. We still haven't got any answers in that case. But basically, what it comes down to is an elderly woman living on her own, being, you know, coming to harm in her own house. It's terrible. If you're not safe at home, where can you be safe? Now, I was trying to put up the Sky News like in the background, but it's not playing the computer. Because when you see where the house is, it is quite remote. It's, you know, I don't know if it looks beautiful. It's a beautiful house, got a swimming pool. It's gorgeous. It's on Dartmoor, or on the outskirts of Dartmoor. But, you know, to live, I don't know if she was living there on her own or not, but it's quite scary, isn't it? If you're an elderly woman living on your own, to live in a remote place like that, is it? I don't know if I would like that. As beautiful as that house is, I think that would be quite scary. I mean, is it somebody's broken in? We don't know if it's somebody she knew, or if it is like a burglar or somebody who had a grudge. It's a bit like the Nancy Guthrie scenario. Is it someone who had a grudge against her for some reason? The police have said that they don't think there's no. What they've said. Well, we'll play the press conference in a moment. Basically, what they've said is there's no evidence to say there's a political motive, which doesn't necessarily mean that there wasn't a political motive, of course. What it means is they're either not prepared to say, or they don't know yet. Is possible, isn't it? You know, they may not know the circumstances. How did they get into their property? Did she let them in? Did they break in? Now, I would imagine what we do know of Anne is if somebody did break in, she wouldn't be quiet, would she? You know, that's the impression you get. She's a very feisty lady, and you would imagine that she would have something to say to them, anyone who broke into her home, if that's what happened. But it may be someone known to her, so that's what we've got to wait to find out for. I just want to give my condolences to her family and friends. You know, it was bad. You know, the thing is, this morning we thought it was a normal bereavement, and now it turns out it's a murder, which is a whole different kind of bereavement, isn't it? So, hello, lovely lurkers. Thank you for watching. Hello to replay crew. Thank you for watching. I'm going to just say hello to people in the chat, because I can see there's a few people in the chat, and then we're going to look at the police conference and see what they had to say. Hi, Julie. I know, absolutely shocking. I can honestly say I am shocked. It takes a lot to shock me these days. But I think because thing is with famous people like Anne Widdicombe, she's one of those people. She's sort of been in the background for years, hasn't she? I've seen her on the news. I've seen her on Strictly Come Dancing. I saw her in that Mick, having a go at Mick Philpott. I've seen her in many things, and then when she was in the European Parliament, and I didn't agree with her with it. I didn't like all the Brexit stuff, but she's just sort of been there in the background, and so it's shocking because, obviously I didn't know her. We didn't know her personally, but when it's somebody who's famous, well known, you do sort of feel that personal connection, don't you? Because she's been on our tellies all that time. It's really shocking. It is really. I was really so shocked when they announced there was a murder inquiry. Hi Tracy. Hi Paul. Yeah, she did, like her or not. She didn't deserve this. Nobody does. She's an elderly lady who's been murdered in her own home. It's terrible, isn't it? Yes, Paul. She was against fox hunting. Yeah, good that he's been arrested. Yeah, Julie, what a week. Oh, there's more to it. So, for those of you who watch my channel regularly, my sister passed away on Monday. Yeah, then Bonnie Tyler passed away. Then now I'm Widdicombe, and I'm going to talk about that later. We've got a terrible thing going on here in Spain, terrible fire that has killed, oh gosh, I need to get hold of my phone, that's killed quite a lot of people, most of them expats. It seems to have started by, but honestly, the scenes from that, and that's in Almeria, which is not right near me, but it's not that far from where I am, south of Spain. Just terrible, so there's been a lot of terrible things. And something that I just want to mention briefly, I'll talk about it probably with my members next time, but my sister passed on Monday, and now there's an investigation into my sister's death. Not a murder investigation, but almost like negligence that anyway, I can't talk about because I'll get too upset. So this week it's been horrible. My sister was in a home. Anyway, that, as I say, I'll talk about it in another video. But just one thing after another this week, very distressing. Anyway, what can I say? Hi, David. Let me just go and get my phone because I've left it over there and it keeps beeping at me. So I've just got to make sure it's nothing. You never know. God, there's always something going on at the moment. So actually, before I get my phone, I think what I'll do is I'll put on the press conference and you can watch it, and then we'll go through it again together. So we'll watch it once, if you like. I'll play it. It's a very short press conference, to be fair. And then I'll play it again and sort of talk about it. But the first time I'll just put it on and yeah. Gosh, awful, isn't it? And imagine for a family and friends, it's bad enough. Now, because Anne Widdicombe, she looked after her mum for quite a long time, didn't she? And mum was in her 90s, I think, when she passed. So I suppose 78 is quite young, for the genetically. She obviously comes from a long-lived family. So 78 would, but now, of course, I don't think anybody even questioned it, though. When I first heard she died, I certainly didn't think, oh, I wonder what happened. They just assume when somebody's in their late 70s, that it'd be natural causes. Anyway, let me play this.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Assistant Chief Constable Matt Longman here at Devon and Cornwall Police, and I'd like to read you this short statement now. A 26-year-old man was arrested at an address in Newton Abbot this afternoon on suspicion of the murder of Anne Widdicombe. The suspect, who is a white British national, remains in police custody whilst inquiries continue. Officers were called to Miss Widdicombe's home at Haytor by the ambulance service around 11:40 a.m. on Thursday, the 9th of July. Sadly, 78-year-old Miss Widdicombe was located deceased within the property. She has sustained serious injuries. Her next of kin have been informed, and our detectives from the Force Major Crime Investigation Team have launched a murder investigation and are conducting extensive inquiries into the circumstances surrounding Miss Widdicombe's death. While we work closely with our partners and have consulted counter-terrorism policing as part of our initial inquiries, the incident is not being treated as terrorism. A cordon remains in place at the property while specialist officers continue forensic examinations. There are road closures in place around the scene, and the public will see significant police activity in the area while detectives and other officers continue house-to-house and CCTV inquiries. This is an extremely tragic incident, very difficult time. Our murder inquiry is in its early stages, but moving at significant pace, and we're deploying all the necessary resources to find out exactly what has happened. I would appeal to anyone who may have information about this incident, however insignificant it may seem, to come forward and speak with us. While we release further information when we're able to do so, but in the meantime, I would ask people not to speculate about what might have happened, particularly on social media. Also deeply distressing to the family. Instant public portal for information. Images or footage can be submitted to us there, and this can be found easily on our website. Information can also be passed anonymously to the independent charity Crime Stoppers. Thank you very much. I'll now take a few short questions.
Was the offender known to the victim?
We remain open-minded throughout the investigation, and we're making those inquiries.
Questions at the end, it's so very irritating because you can never hear the question properly. Now, I'm presuming you can all hear this video okay. Let me know if there's any problem.
Is there any indication that the murder was politically motivated?
No, at this time, again, it's early stages of the investigation, so we'll remain open-minded. At this time, I've got no information to believe that that is a politically motivated crime. Please.
Had she received any threats before this?
Well, we work very closely within national protocols to monitor those within MPs and the political environment. I think it'd be wrong for me to comment about anything around an individual at this stage of the investigation.
All Greaves, Devon Line. Is there anything more you can tell us about the nature of the injuries Ms. Widdicombe sustained?
Well, again, I think for both sensitivity of the family and friends and also this stage of the inquiry, it'd be wrong for me to comment on that any further right now. But when we have further details of any part of the investigation, we will, of course, be briefing out to you.
100K from Creative Fits News. Can you tell me about the police presence in the area that's ongoing this evening?
Yeah, so police presence will remain high for a number of reasons. Most of all, we're still evidence gathering within our investigation. So, like I said in the statement, CCTV, etc. But of course, we also want people to feel safe. At the moment, I don't know of any ongoing risk, but we know that the presence of our officers, just to make people know we're there, be available to give advice, etc., will be around. So you can expect an increased presence throughout the weekend.
Was the 26-year-old man arrested locally, or was he outside the force area?
So the person we have in custody has been arrested within the force area.
Was there any struggle when he was arrested?
I'm not going to give any further details about our operational activity today. Thank you. take two more.
Sorry, was he known to you?
Again, inappropriate to comment, I think, on the individual facts. The case at this stage of it. Thank you.
Any signs that anything was stolen from the property? Was the property broken into? Were you seeing it as a burglary gone wrong?
So, all the things that we need to work on throughout the investigation, and the key thing I think for us is obviously all our efforts today are focused on this investigation to get the right outcome for Miss Widdicombe's family, friends, but also to make our communities feel safe and confident that we have some of the best officers working on it. We remain open-minded as to that question. Nothing further to say at this time. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Much appreciated.
Yeah, so a very short press conference, just really to comfort. Now, the press conference, hi Moonbeam, the press conference was delayed over an hour, I think, from when it was supposed to take place. So makes you wonder, were they actually arresting the guy at the time? So the guy was arrested in Newton Abbot, and we're going to have a look on the map in a minute where Newton Abbot is. It's Devon and Cornwall area, isn't it? I remember it from my Ladbrokes, well, when I worked on the tow. I didn't ever go to work at Newton Abbot, but I remember there's a race course there because I remember getting the results from Newton Abbot. They quite often had evening meetings. But let's just play the press conference again, and then I'm going to have a look where it is on the map. On the map. It was a very, very short press conference, so he's just given us, the minimum of information that he can give us at the moment. That a 26-year-old man has been arrested, but of course then the reporters were trying to ask, had anything been stolen, was it a robbery gone wrong, and he can't give those details at the moment, can he? So don't forget, the guy has not been charged yet. He's been arrested on suspicion of murder, but we're waiting to see, he may not get charged. We just don't know, do we? But anyway, at least they've got somebody.
I'm Assistant Chief Constable Matt Longman here at Devon and Cornwall Police, and I'd like to read you this short statement now on our whereabouts today. We can confirm that a 26-year-old man was arrested at an address in Newton Abbot this afternoon on suspicion of the murder of Anne Widdicombe. Police custody whilst inquiries will continue. Officers were called to Miss Widdicombe's home at Haytor by the ambulance service around 11:40 a.m. on Thursday, the 9th of July. Sadly, 78-year-old Miss Widdicombe was located deceased within the property. She has sustained serious injuries. Her next of kin have been informed and are being supported. The Major Crime Investigation Team have launched a murder investigation and are conducting extensive inquiries into the circumstances surrounding Miss Widdicombe's death. While we work closely with our partners and have consulted counter-terrorism policing as part of our initial inquiries, the incident is not being treated as terrorism. A cordon remains in place at the property.
So they're saying it has not been treated, it's not being treated as terrorism. So that makes you wonder then that it's not maybe to do with their political beliefs. Because there's been several MPs have been murdered because of their political stances on things. We've got David Amess, not that long ago, he was murdered in his constituency surgery, wasn't he? And then Joe Cox. So David Amess was murdered by, I think it was an Islamist, wasn't it? Whereas Joe Cox was murdered by a far right, protagonist. So it's a dangerous job these days that MPs do, nobody should be murdered for being for their job, full stop. But, just for having a stance on something that is opposite maybe to other people's stance, the sort of freedom of thought and freedom of speech is important in our society. And I say I didn't agree with Anne in many things politically. You know, she had very right-wing views, you know, about marriage and about abortion, and she was anti-gay and things like that. You know, and which I totally disagree with. But you don't go and stab someone because of that, do you? Because she was a committed Catholic, wasn't she? In the end, she converted to being a Catholic. She wasn't always a Catholic, but she was what you would call a puritanical Catholic. So, you know, I think even more puritanical than the Pope, you know. So I love our Pope that we've got now. You know, he's sort of so forgiving to people. But Anne wasn't very forgiving. But then, you know, that's her, you know, that was her beliefs. I don't know. But anyway, the guy is saying, the policeman's saying, she was not, it's not thought to be terrorist related.
While specialist officers continue forensic examinations. There are road closures in place around the scene, and the public will see significant police activity in the area while detectives and other officers continue house to house and CCTV inquiries. This is an extremely tragic incident. Our thoughts are very much with the family and friends of Miss Widdicombe at this very difficult time. Our murder inquiry is in its early stages, but moving at significant pace, and we're deploying all the necessary resources to find out exactly what has happened. I would appeal to anyone who may have information about this incident, however insignificant it may seem, to come forward and speak with us. While we release further information when we're able to do so, but in the meantime, I would ask people not to speculate about what might have happened, particularly on social media. That's not only potentially harmful to our investigation, but also deeply distressing to the family and friends of Miss Widdicombe. We've set up a major incident public portal for information. Images or footage can be submitted to us there, and this can be found easily on our website. Information can also be passed anonymously to the independent charity Crime Stoppers. Thank you very much. I'll now take a few short questions.
Right, I'll stop that there because you couldn't hear the questions very well anyway, and he didn't answer any of them because, you know, these journalists, they make me laugh because they get an opportunity to ask questions, but they also always ask questions, you know, they always ask questions that the guy can't answer, don't they? So, you know, strange. Anyway, so we're going to go on to the police portal now. We're going to go on to the police website. So it's being dealt with by Devon and Cornwall Police. Let me just make sure that is sharing. Oh, I lost my connection. Can you hear me okay again? I think I went off for a minute there. So let's read what it says on the. Yeah, Julie, you might well be right. Might well be a burglary gone wrong. It feels that way, but time will tell. Time will tell. You know, do you think it's possible that it was somebody local who knew she lived alone? Or maybe someone who'd done some work there? Yeah, we're asking similar questions to what we asked with Nancy Guthrie. And you know what? It's just so awful that you know, how anyone, it's always vulnerable people that become victims because they're easy victims, aren't they? You know, an elderly woman living on her own is an easier victim than, you know, a young fit guy sort of thing who, even if they live in a remote house on their own or, you know, whatever, they're just not so easy, are they, to, you know, victims are always vulnerable, either very old or very young, or women. You know, there's this sort of grade of victim. And if you're elderly and a woman, you know, you're sort of really. I remember apparently the what you would not expect is that the most common victims of serial killers are elderly women. That's a surprise, isn't it? You wouldn't think that. But I don't think you get to hear about it so often because it's not, I don't know, maybe it's not newsworthy enough. I don't know where it is. But anyway, so a murder inquiry launched following the death of Anne Widdicombe on Dartmoor. Police officers were called to an address at Haytor, and we're going to have a look in a minute where it is, by the ambulance service at about 11:40 on Thursday. Gosh, I'll tell you what, YouTube is holding so many messages. I've got all these messages coming up, and they're not even, you know what I mean? They're not contentious messages. I've got one of David's there that I've got to allow through, and one of Tracy's. Well, I don't know what's wrong with YouTube at the moment. Anyway, so this was Thursday, so that's yesterday, 11:40 a.m. And sadly, 78-year-old Miss Widdicombe was located deceased within the property. She had sustained serious injuries. Her next of kin have been informed and are being supported by specially trained officers. Hi, Louise. I mean, just awful, isn't it, to get through your life? This is what I say about Nancy Guthrie. You know, you get to a ripe old age like that. You know, Nancy, of course, was 84 and 78. You go through all the challenges that life has to throw at you, only for this to happen to you when you should be, you know, in your golden years, just relaxing and. You know, for something so traumatic to happen, because, you know, it will have been awful for Anne, won't it? Just will have, whatever, you know, whatever the circumstances, whoever the person is who's done it, what a traumatic experience. You know, having to go through that. So detectives from the 4th Major Crime Investigation Team have launched a murder investigation and are conducting extensive inquiries into the circumstances surrounding Miss Widdicombe's death. A cordon remains in place at the property while specialist officers continue forensic examinations. There are road closures in place around the scene. The public will see a significant police presence in the area today, while detectives and officers conduct house-to-house and CCTV inquiries. And Detective Chief Inspector Iona Rosson said, "This is an extremely tragic incident, and our thoughts are very much with the family and friends of Anne Widdicombe at this difficult time. I would appeal to anyone who may have information to come forward and speak to us." Now, I'm going to have a look in a minute where this has happened, for people like me who aren't really brilliant with geography. Hi, Louise. Yeah, we've just watched the press conference. He said that the detective said there was no evidence to support it was politically motivated. And I just want to say that, as far as I know, I don't think he's been charged yet. You're saying he's been arrested and charged, but I don't know that he has been charged yet. Or anyway, it hasn't come out on the news. I've got Sky News on in the background here. It's not come out that it's been charged, but it may have, and it just hasn't reached Sky News's ears yet. So what I want to do now is show you where. So Newton Abbot is where the guy has been arrested, 26 years old. Gosh, it really is shocking, isn't it? Now, you may well be, Louise. I'm just saying I haven't heard that yet. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying it's not true. But yeah, we did just watch the press conference, but he hadn't been charged. Yeah, have a little listen, because you know what? I'm always glad to hear, you know, if there's an update, that's because I've just got Sky News on in the background, but you know, they might not be the first. Yeah, no charges yet, no charges. But you know, they have quite a lot. How long do they have to keep them before they have to decide whether to charge them or not? Anyway, let's have a look at the at where it is. So if, like me, not brilliant with geography, I'm rubbish. The guy has been arrested in Newton Abbot, which I'm trying to put up here, but for some reason it's not adding to the stage. Oh, it should come up now. So Newton Abbot, a town in England. That's where he's been arrested, the guy. On the edge of Dartmoor. There's Dartmoor National Park. I've never been to Dartmoor. I'd like to go. I had a student who lived very near Dartmoor. Where have I been? I've been to Devon and Cornwall. I think I've been to Torquay, but it was so many years ago. I don't really remember much about it. We stayed in a bed and breakfast. I remember that. It was a bit like Faulty Towers. That's what I do remember. I don't know if it was Torquay or Newquay. I mean, I was only about 20 at the time, maybe even younger, maybe only 19. And we stayed in like this bed and breakfast type place. It was beautiful, it was lovely, but it was a bit like Faulty Towers. And it was either Torquay or Newquay, I can't remember which one. So yeah, so we can see, so this here we've got Dartmoor National Park. Anne lived somewhere on the edges of it, and the man who's been arrested, the 26-year-old, has been arrested in Newton Abbot. Now everyone will be dying to know who this person is, but of course the police won't release who it is. Yeah, Basil, it was very much like that. Oh, the guy who owned it, he was so like Basil Fawlty. I mean, it was lovely. We had a great time. I'll tell you a funny story actually about that. We could do with a bit of like relief, couldn't we? But yeah, this bed and breakfast that we stayed in. So it was me and my friend, and we met these two guys there, of all places. I don't even know why we ended up going there. It's not the sort of place you think a teenager will go to. Anyway, we did, and we met these two guys who were also staying there. And we ended up sort of hanging around with them quite a lot, going to the pub with them and everything. Anyway, every morning for breakfast, we used to get these fabulous sausages. Honest to God, I've never tasted sausages like them. They were fantastic. Anyway, on the last night that we were staying there, we went out, we got absolutely hammered, basically. Came home, like had to sort of tiptoe in, you know, because there was a curfew of what time you had to be in and whatever. I think we had to come in through the back way or so. I can't remember all the details because it's 40 years ago now. Anyway, we were starving, so we went into the kitchen of this hotel. Well, it was, you know, like one of those beds, like just like Faulty Towers. It looked just like Faulty Towers. We went into the kitchen and we were eating roast potatoes that had been left over from the Sunday dinner that day, because it was a Sunday. And then one of us came up with the brilliant idea of let's take a packet of those sausages home because they're such lovely sausages. So God, I hope I won't get, you know, prosecuted for this like historic crime or whatever. Anyway, it wasn't me who stole the sausages. It was one of the guys, one of the lads that we were hanging around with. Got a packet of a great big massive pack of sausages. You know, like a catering pack of sausages. These sausages, and then of course we thought it was a brilliant idea at the time. Anyway, the next morning there was all this kerfuffle about what had happened to the sausages. So we buried them in the gardens. We buried this pack of sausages because, of course, things that seem like a good idea when you've been out drinking and, you know, you've had too much to drink and you're young and stupid. When you wake up the next morning, don't seem like such a good idea, do they? Especially when everyone's having like it's like Poirot trying to find out what's happened to the sausages, and this guy's got them in his suitcase or whatever. I don't even know where they were. And yeah, we put well, I say we, not me, but these guys buried these sausages in the gardens. So as far as maybe sausage trees grew in the end, I don't know, but that's what happened to the sausages. So it's like a Poirot mystery or a Miss Marple mystery. What's happened to the sausages? I think it was Torquay. Anyway, it was either Torquay or Newquay. I'm not sure. So going back to what I should be talking about, it's a serious thing, of course, but you know what it's like with true crime. Sometimes you just have to have a bit of light relief. Otherwise, do you know what I mean? It's just too depressing, isn't it? Because it's hard on the soul. True crime is hard on the soul, isn't it? Yeah, sausage gates. Well, one day I should write a book about all the things I got up to when I was young and foolish. I was, you know, I did have some experiences, let's say. Okay, the house, beautiful house with a and yeah, sadly that's where awful. You know, as I say, whether you like Anne or you don't like her, or you agree with the politics or you don't agree with the politics, you know, here is her house. Let's show you. It's quite isolated, isn't it? Hang on, wait till let me. Doesn't seem to be sharing. Oh, hang on. Can you hear me okay? I have to keep asking if you can hear me because it keeps telling me it's lost connection, but I don't know if it has or not. They've got a bloody IKEA advert up at the top here for some reason. I don't want the IKEA advert. I want to see the house. Goodness sake. Oh, drives me mad. Right, let's try that. See if I can put it on full. Why won't it go on full? So the IKEA ad, you can't even see the flipping video. There you go. So you should be able to see it now. I'll put it back to the beginning. So this is where she lived, and it's beautiful, but it's quite remote. I don't know if I'd like to live somewhere that remote, really. I mean, especially on my own. I don't know that Anne did live on her own. I don't know if she lived on her own or not. She's not married. but she may have lived. She may have lived alone, I don't know, or somebody may have lived there with her. She had a brother, but I think her brother had passed away. It wasn't a brother, a priest or something. Fabulous house, yeah. Beautiful swimming pool. So, yeah. So it seems likely, I mean, we're not supposed to speculate. We've been told not to speculate. All Sky News has been doing is speculating. It just makes me laugh the way they say, oh, you know, it's social media have been told not to speculate. And then, you know, the mainstream media just speculates for hours. Anyway, that they don't think that it's speculation, do they? I mean, I just was watching Sky News earlier. I had Adam Bolton on, who's like a dinosaur, isn't he? Because he was actually speculating as to whether she was a virgin or not, calling her an old maid and all these kind of things. I was just like shocked. He actually referred to her as an old maid and speculated as to whether she was a virgin or not. Oh my God. Adam Bolton, you dinosaur. You know, just get him off the telly. That is just disgusting, I think. It's just misogyny, personally, I think. How dare he do that? How disrespectful. And then you get the mainstream media complaining about social media. And there's Adam Bolton, you know, chief political editor or whatever he is in Sky News, speculating like that. Disgusting. Anyway, so that is her home, which is a beautiful, beautiful home. But you know what? Very remote. I don't know. I don't know if I'd like to live anywhere that remote, either alone or not, really, to be honest, because sometimes you're going to be alone. You know, I had some friends who had a beautiful place out in the country here in Spain. Absolutely beautiful. Detached house, swimming pool, and you know, I would go and stay with them sometimes. But if they sometimes they would pop into the village, like to get, you know, to go to the supermarket or whatever, and I would be there on my own. I was terrified, absolutely terrified, because it just was miles away from anywhere. Hated it, hated being there on my own. So, you know, exactly, none of Adam's business. How dare he say that? I'm waiting for people to complain about that. I haven't had time to complain about it yet because I had to take my son to work and everything. But I'm going to put in a complaint about it. How dare he say that? Speculate that and then turn around and say, oh, you know, social media speculation drives me mad. Anyway, so this is where we are so far. There's something else that I just want to talk about before I finish. I'm going to split that off. There's not much else to say about this so far. So Anne Widdicombe, bless her soul. So it turns out she was murdered oh my God, in her own home. It's shocking. It's terrible. This is an elderly woman in her own home where she should feel safe. Terrible, terrible. Anyway, but the good news is somebody has been arrested on suspicion of murder. But as far as I know so far, unless it comes out, he has not been charged yet. But we have to hope that charges are coming, you know, and that they have got the right person. Now, something I just wanted to show you, because this is this terrible thing that's happening in Spain at the moment in Almeria. Just awful. Just one. Oh, I put that up. Oh, bless Anne. You know, it's like, yeah, as we've been saying, whatever your political views, whether you agree with Anne or not. She's certainly a character, and she's, you know, Anne Widdicombe has been around forever. I can remember when I was young not liking her political views. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you know, she is the opposite end of the political spectrum as far as I'm concerned. But not as far as like being against fox hunting is concerned, and there are other things that we do agree on. And the way she, as I say, the way she stood up to Mick Philpott, shocking misogynist. I'm sorry she's not around to give Adam Bolton a bloody telling off for the way he spoke. But, you know, so she would certainly always say what she thought, and I think that's not a bad thing. You know, all the politicians these days are just snakes, aren't they? So they just say what they think. They just say whatever they think the public wants them to say. There's very few politicians that, when they actually say what they think, it really is what they think and not what they think people want to hear. So I do think that is a positive thing about Anne, whether you agree with her or